Morality feels safe until power enters the room. Then it becomes a liability. Picture two men facing the same threat: a rumor, a rival, a public challenge. One reacts with honesty, defense, explanation. The other pauses, says nothing, and watches. You feel the chest tighten, pulse spike, the instinct to prove innocence, to be understood. That instinct is how subjects lose. The first man tells the truth and expects fairness. The room hears weakness. The second man controls perception and survives untouched. Same facts, different outcome. This is the divide Machiavelli understood. Power does not reward goodness. It rewards advantage. Princes do not ask what is right. They ask what works. If that sentence unsettles you, good. It means you still think like a subject. Subjects seek approval. Princes secure position. One is moral and expendable. The other is calm and durable. Power decides outcomes. Power does not operate on ideals. It operates on incentives, fear, and perception. Morality tells you how people should behave. Power studies how they actually do. That gap is where outcomes are decided. In competitive environments, moral signaling is not rewarded. It is tested. The moment you announce what you stand for, you reveal what you will tolerate and what you will not. Others adjust. Pressure finds its opening. Good intentions become predictable behavior, and predictability is a weakness. Human beings are not driven by virtue. They are driven by survival instincts layered with status anxiety, fear of loss, desire for control, need for belonging. Power understands this and speaks directly to those forces, while morality speaks past them. That is why moral arguments collapse under pressure and strategic moves endure. This is why doing the right thing often leads to being sidelined. Not because goodness is wrong, but because it is legible. When your conscience is visible, it can be leveraged. When your reactions are automatic, they can be steered. Power rewards those who manage perception before emotion, those who pause before responding, those who understand that fairness is a story told after outcomes are secured, not before. Strategic awareness does not reject morality. It subordinates it to context. The emotional conscience reacts. It seeks relief, validation, moral clarity. Strategic awareness observes. It delays, reframes, and chooses timing. One feels clean and loses influence. The other feels uncomfortable and keeps leverage. This is the mental shift Machiavelli demands. Stop asking what is right in the abstract. Start asking what behavior this environment punishes and what it rewards. Power is not cruel. It is indifferent. It does not care about your values. It only responds to signals. Once you see this, you stop being shocked by outcomes. You stop taking losses personally. You begin to think in structures instead of feelings. And when you do, the next layer of control becomes visible. A Machiavellian prince does not begin with intentions. He begins with outcomes. Intentions are private comfort. Outcomes are public reality. The world does not reward what you meant to do. It rewards what actually happens. This is the first fracture between subjects and rulers. Subjects explain themselves. Princes measure results. Appearance comes next, because perception moves faster than truth. Truth takes time, evidence, and patience. Appearance lands instantly. People react before they verify. A prince understands this and never relies on being understood. He relies on being interpreted correctly in the moment. Reality follows perception, not the other way around. By the time truth arrives, the structure is already set. Trust is not a moral gift. It is a managed resource. Princes do not ask who deserves trust. They ask who benefits from it and who becomes dangerous with it. Trust is granted in layers, tested quietly, and revoked without drama. Full trust is never necessary. Controlled access is enough. Those who demand total transparency usually want leverage, not connection. Distance preserves authority. Familiarity erodes it. When people feel too close to you, they stop respecting your position and start negotiating it. A prince maintains measured distance. Not coldness, but containment. He is present without being exposed. Approachable without being predictable. Distance creates gravity. Gravity pulls behavior into alignment without force. Fear is more reliable than love, but only when disciplined. Uncontrolled fear breeds rebellion. Controlled fear breeds order. A prince does not terrify for pleasure. He establishes consequences and enforces them consistently. Love fluctuates with emotion and mood. Fear remains steady when boundaries are clear. The key is restraint. Fear must never turn personal. It must feel structural, inevitable, almost impersonal. Information is power only when concealed. The moment information is shared freely, it loses leverage. A prince speaks last, not first. He listens more than he reveals. He understands that knowledge exposed becomes knowledge contested. Knowledge contained becomes advantage. Silence is not emptiness. It is storage. Every unspoken detail preserves optionality. These principles operate together. Outcomes guide action. Appearance sets direction. Trust is rationed. Distance stabilizes authority. Fear maintains structure. Information stays protected. None of this requires cruelty. It requires clarity. The cruelty comes from pretending the world works differently and being punished for it repeatedly. This is why Machiavellian thinking feels uncomfortable at first. It removes emotional shortcuts. It denies the relief of moral self-expression. It replaces "I feel" with "what happens next." That shift is unsettling, but it is where power begins. A prince does not rush to correct misunderstandings. He lets them work in his favor. He does not chase approval. He lets others come to terms with his position. He does not explain every move. He allows ambiguity to protect momentum. Subjects ask, "Is this fair?" Princes ask, "Is this stable?" Subjects want to be liked. Princes want to be obeyed without constant enforcement. Subjects react to events. Princes shape the conditions that produce them. Once you adopt this framework, your thinking slows down. You stop leaking information. You stop signaling weakness through overjustification. You stop confusing honesty with exposure. You begin to see patterns others miss because they are busy defending their intentions. This is not about becoming ruthless. It is about becoming precise. Precision reduces chaos. Chaos invites threats. The prince's mind is not dark because it is evil. It is dark because it operates beneath appearances, where incentives, fears, and structures quietly decide everything. And once you understand how a prince thinks, the next question becomes unavoidable. How do these principles translate into action when pressure arrives and others lose control? Consider the workplace. Subject thinking rushes to prove loyalty. You over-explain decisions, volunteer extra context, defend intentions before they're questioned. Each explanation feels protective, but it leaks position. Managers learn your fears. Peers learn your limits. Prince thinking does the opposite. You deliver results, speak briefly, and allow silence to sit. When questions come, you answer narrowly. Loyalty is inferred from outcomes, not speeches. Silence turns attention toward your work instead of your motives. In social settings, subject thinking chases approval. You reply quickly, fill gaps, adjust opinions to stay included. Access becomes cheap. People feel entitled to your time and emotional labor. Prince thinking controls access. Responses are paced. Invitations are considered, not grabbed. You remain polite, but unavailable by default. Scarcity reframes your presence. Others lean in, recalibrate, and respect boundaries they didn't know existed. In conflict, subject thinking reacts emotionally. Accusations trigger defense. The body heats up. Words accelerate. You argue facts to restore fairness. In doing so, you validate the frame set against you. Prince thinking delays. You acknowledge without conceding. You let the moment pass without resolution. Time exposes exaggeration, weak allies drift away, and the narrative loses energy. Repositioning happens later, quietly, through timing and alignment, not confrontation. Side by side, the contrast is stark. Old you explains. Sovereign you observes. Old you seeks clarity. Sovereign you preserves ambiguity. Old you tries to win moments. Sovereign you designs trajectories. One trades short-term relief for long-term leverage. The other absorbs discomfort now to control outcomes later. This is the discipline in practice. Not louder moves, but fewer. Not faster reactions, but better timing. When pressure appears, subjects speak to survive the moment. Princes stay still to shape what follows. That restraint is what turns ordinary situations into advantage. It feels uncomfortable at first. Silence creates tension inside you. That tension is the price of leverage. Each time you resist explaining, your nervous system recalibrates. You realize nothing collapses. Respect quietly increases. People test less and listen more. Over weeks, patterns shift. Decisions route through you. Conflicts soften before reaching you. You are no longer managed by reactions. You are managing conditions. This is how Prince thinking embeds itself, not as an attitude, but as a default operating posture under pressure. Once this posture stabilizes, others feel it instantly and adjust behavior without instruction, because power prefers calm architects over emotional participants every time in life. Machiavellian thinking is a tool, not a personality. Used in the right arenas, it multiplies leverage. Used blindly, it creates friction. This distinction is what separates strategic realism from self-sabotage. It works best in hierarchies, negotiations, leadership paths, and status games. These environments run on incentives, perception, and asymmetry. People compete quietly. Power is indirect. Here, restraint, distance, and controlled disclosure protect position. Outcomes matter more than intentions, and those who manage appearances shape reality. In these spaces, emotional transparency is read as weakness, and moral signaling is exploited. Strategic thinking allows you to navigate without bleeding influence. It fails in emergencies, intimacy, and trust-dependent environments. Crises demand speed and clarity, not delay and ambiguity. Loved ones require presence, not calculated distance. Teams built on mutual reliance fracture when everyone withholds. Applying Machiavellian logic where cooperation is the currency turns allies into skeptics. Power becomes isolation instead of authority. The line is not kindness versus cruelty. It is context. Strategic realism observes incentives without assuming hostility everywhere. Paranoia assumes every interaction is a threat. One reads the board. The other imagines enemies. Paranoia tightens behavior, drains energy, and makes you predictable in its own way. Strategic realism stays calm, flexible, and selective. Ethical calibration does not weaken authority. It strengthens it. You do not deceive to dominate. You withhold to protect structure. You choose silence when speech costs leverage and clarity when responsibility demands it. You adapt without announcing principles or justifying restraint. Power that lasts is situationally intelligent. It expands where competition exists and softens where trust compounds. Knowing when to switch modes is the mark of a prince, not the memorization of rules. Mastery is not using this mindset everywhere. Mastery is knowing exactly where it belongs and where it does not. The upgrade begins when you stop asking if you are good and start asking if you are effective. Moral actors seek approval. Princes seek outcomes. This is not a descent into cruelty. It is a refusal to confuse virtue with power. Being good is reactive. It waits to be judged. Being strategic is proactive. It sets conditions before judgment arrives. When you detach from validation, leverage increases. Praise no longer pulls you. Criticism no longer pushes you. You become harder to steer because nothing external defines your worth. Emotional neutrality is the signal most people misread. They call it cold. In reality, it is control. When others escalate, you stay level. When others confess, you listen. When others rush, you slow the pace. This contrast changes the room. Calm men force recalibration. Reactive men invite dominance. The prince mindset is anchored by simple power lines. Outcomes over intentions. Distance protects authority. Appearances move faster than truth. Trust is managed, not assumed. Fear is a tool, not a lifestyle. Information is currency, not conversation. This identity does not perform. It positions. You stop explaining yourself to be understood and start acting so outcomes speak. Silence becomes active. Timing becomes deliberate. Presence becomes weight. Internally, anxiety drops. You are no longer negotiating your image in every interaction. You are choosing responses based on advantage, not impulse. This frees attention. Awareness sharpens. Moves become cleaner. You are not above morality. You are beyond dependence on it. You apply ethics by choice, not by fear of judgment. That choice is power. When this shift locks in, people feel it before they understand it. They sense restraint. They sense distance. They sense that access is earned. That is when you stop being treated like a subject and start being handled like a prince. For 7 days, impose discipline on how you think and respond. Day 1 begins with speech restraint. Speak only when words move position, not when they soothe emotion. Notice how often silence would have been stronger. Day 2 removes instant reaction. When provoked, delay your response by minutes, then hours. Watch urgency dissolve and clarity return. Day 3 limits disclosure. Share conclusions, never process. Let others reveal while you withhold. Day 4 focuses on decisions. Do not decide under pressure. Sleep on choices and observe how leverage appears with time. Day 5 trains the body. Slow breathing, relaxed jaw, steady posture. Power starts in physiology. Day 6 is observation. Enter rooms as a witness, not a participant. Track incentives, alliances, fear. Day 7 integrates everything. Fewer words, slower moves, cleaner exits. Measure success by control, not praise. This trial replaces moral reflex. Power does not reward good intentions. It rewards clarity, positioning, and restraint. The world does not ask who meant well. It responds to who understood the game. When you think like a prince, outcomes shift quietly. Access changes. Resistance softens. Control appears without announcement. There is a cost. Strategic thinking separates you from the naive. You will see incentives where others see ideals. You will pause where others rush. Some will call it cold. Others will feel it as authority. This isolation is not loss. It is filtration. This is not a call to dominate. It is a contract to remain aware. From this point forward, you choose timing over impulse. Observation over reaction. Effectiveness over approval. You manage distance, not emotion. You protect information, not ego. Seal this privately. Think clearly. Move deliberately. Appear calm. Let outcomes speak. Power belongs to those who can wait.